p.m. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 38, Section 20, relating to the 2020 coronavirus outbreak emergency, the September 2nd, 2020, 7 o'clock public meeting of the Norfolk Zoning Board of Appeals shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be made through the Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The software allowed users to view the meeting and send comments or questions to the chair via the raise your hand function, or physically raise your hand so that the Amy can see you. This meeting will be recorded for future broadcast by Norfolk Community Television. This evening, we will continue the public hearing for the Abbeville comprehensive permit at 17 Lawrence Street. At this time, I will turn over the meeting to Tom DePlacido and John Smolak, who is going to review their plans, as well as a presentation of the site layout. And then we'll have questions from the board, and then we can jump back into the edits to the waivers and the decision. So Tom and John, I'll turn it over to you at this time, and Rick.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. For the record, John Smolak, attorney for the applicants. With me is Tom DePlacido, principal of the applicants, as well as Rick Goudreau, United Consultants, our project engineer. Since our last meeting, there are a number of items that the board had requested that we follow up on. And since that last hearing, we've also submitted an updated site layout plan and conceptual site plan as well, and a sort of a blow up of the infiltration basin plan, which Rick Goudreau will present to you shortly. So in addition to that, Rick plans to just present the revised site layout plans and lot plans and identify certain items that have been adjusted based on the feedback we got at the last hearing. And also, since the last hearing, Bill McGrath Data has issued a peer review letter dated September 1, which I'm sure the board will run through. And at this time, I turn the discussion over to Rick.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Can everyone hear me okay?
Very clear, Rick.
All right, very well. Thank you. Amy, would it be possible for you to bring up the conceptual site plan to start with? So, based on the input from the last hearing, there were some questions with regard to sidewalks for the development, as well as Lawrence Street. What we've done is we've identified with a fairly thick black line the sidewalk system within the development, and also a small portion of Lawrence Street. With respect to Lawrence Street, it's my understanding that the applicant has presented a proposal for the sidewalk construction on Lawrence Street to provide a connection from the site driveway to the existing sidewalk in and around the area where the causeway sidewalk is located. So with respect to the sidewalk within the development, what we're proposing is to construct the sidewalk on the easterly side of roadway A. That sidewalk will begin at Lawrence Street and terminate basically around the end of the cul-de-sac bulb at an existing driveway. That sidewalk will be 5 feet in width, and there will be a 7-foot grass strip from the edge of the sidewalk to the back of the Cape Cod berm curbing. Also being proposed is a sidewalk loop on the easterly side of the condominium roadway. That sidewalk will be 5 feet in width and will have a 3-foot grass strip from the back of curb to the edge of the sidewalk closest to it. Additionally, we have relocated the bus stop shelter, which we had previously proposed to have at the intersection of Lawrence Street in an easement on lot 1. We're now proposing to construct a bus shelter adjacent to the mailbox area where 5 parking spaces, I believe it's 5 parking spaces, are located in between lots 24 and 25. Additionally, the applicant has asked us to extend the sidewalk from the southerly condominium intersection with Road A to the area of the mailbox and the bus stop to provide for pedestrian access from the condominium loop via a sidewalk to that area. So that's the extent of the sidewalk. I believe that addresses the questions that were brought up with respect to that. Amy, if you could go to, excuse me, the detention pond infiltration basin plan. So there was some comments raised with respect to easements and access for the infiltration basin area. So what we did was we completed a 20 scale blow up of the area. And then we highlighted the 15-foot access from the condominium roadway via a 15-foot wide access road into the basin area itself. Additionally, there's a 15-foot wide berm that will be located coming from the roadway, heading to the east and then to the north to the spillway area. And a second roadway would be provided on top of the berm on the westerly side of the basin, heading west off of the main road, driveway, access road, if you will, coming in from the condominium roadway, and then running west and then north, a little northeast, and then ultimately heading east to the spillway area. So that would be the 15-foot wide access for both the top and access into the infiltration basin area. You can see a thick dashed line that is around the basin. That would be the proposed easement for the infiltration basin, provide access, and the utility easement for drainage piping and the basin and sediment forebay itself. There is also an easement proposed from Road A westerly along the condominium roadway. So you can see where the dashed line is on both the north and south side of the condominium roadway, and then goes from the southerly side to the northerly side, just to the left of the condominium roadway label. That would be the easement so that the DPW or town would have the ability to go from Road A over the condominium roadway area and get access to the infiltration basin. That system of the 15-foot wide access points would also be utilized to provide access to the leaching area of the septic system. The soil absorption system area you can see is located westerly of the pond. And that 15-foot wide access would also provide access to the preservation easement area, in essence, the open space area to the rear of the property. So that's a multi-purpose easement for both stormwater, utilities, accessibility to the soil absorption system for the condominium, as well as access to the open space and the preservation easement area. So what I think this plan depicts is what that easement would look like to hopefully address the concerns that were brought up at the last hearing. As you can see, we've also relocated the drainage basin and the sediment forebay. They've been located further away from the houses on lots 21 and 22 to provide some separation and some additional lawn area. We have shown that on this plan. I know that was also a concern that was raised at the last hearing. So as I said, that has created some additional separation from the houses. Additionally, at the request as requested at the last hearing, we've provided some soil absorption system areas on each of the lots to show where they could be constructed. And I believe that addresses the items that we had discussed at the last hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Rick at this time from the board members before I let Bill McGrath speak? John?
Yeah, I just had a question where I saw the sidewalk coming up from the condominium section and then going to the school bus stop. Is there some type of crosswalk to connect that to the other sidewalk that runs all the way down to Lawrence Street?
Yes, Don, there is. There's actually, if you can blow up that area, Amy, you'll see that there's two dock stubs that head from the sidewalk through the grass strip, both on the easterly and westerly side of the roadway. Those would be handicap ramps to provide a crosswalk at that location.
And I assume there'd be some type of sign there that says, you know, sidewalk or something. I don't know, crosswalk.
Yes, we could have a crosswalk sign. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Other questions from the board?
Also sidewalks, Chris, this is Joe. At the entrance to the development and then the sidewalk continuing along Lawrence, meeting up with the existing sidewalk by the causeway, correct?
Yes.
So that's already figured into this plan, or is that a separate plan?
It's figured into this plan, but we'll probably talk about that in a little bit later when we're going through the decision and the conditions. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Other questions for board members?
I had a question.
Go ahead, Devin.
So just continuing the sidewalk, at the cul-de-sac, the sidewalk ends at that driveway. I think I had mentioned it before. I just wanted to make sure that that sidewalk had extended down, I thought it could extend down to really the start of the throat of that cul-de-sac, just so someone doesn't have to cross all the way across the roadway to access the main, the main strip of the sidewalk, if you will.
Yeah, we can look at that. That's fine. So you're basically saying where we've terminated it at that driveway for lot 21, you'd like to see it extended down closer to lot 21, 22 lot line?
Yeah, really, yeah, exactly, right at that lot line, where the mouse is right now.
Okay.
That way someone doesn't have to, cross across, 50 feet of pavement to get to the crosswalk or the sidewalk on the other side.
That would prompt us another crosswalk though, right there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then just the other question I had was, and I apologize if you have a detail for it. What is the access around the basin going to be constructed of, just to make sure that vehicles can adequately access around the basin?
So we proposed, we do have a detail on the construction detail plans, which, we'll be adding to the plans in the future. But it's basically a gravel base with 2 inches of loam and then seeded.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't, like 6 to 10 inches of loam and
Nope.
the car sinks down or something like that.
A minimal
great.
amount of loam over a gravel base, roadway gravel.
Okay. That's all I had for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Bill McGrath, would you like to just review your review letter based on this new plan? Sure.
Again, Bill McGrath with Beta Group. So at the last meeting, we were asked to review a few specific things related to the revised site plan, and we had an opportunity to work with Tom and Rick to go through a few of these things as well. The first was the infiltration basin. As Rick mentioned, there was some concern about it being located close to the houses on lots 21 and 22, and in particular the sediment forebay. So Rick's already showed it, but we were able to work through it. I think the layout is much improved. The only thing we'll confirm when the final stormwater report is issued is that the volume is still adequate. I'm sure it is, because the roadway layout and impervious area, I don't think has changed much from the previous plan. The other thing was the proposed grading and the riprap slope behind lots 16 through 18. There was just some concern, I think, raised about the height of it and the extent of it and the proximity to some of the houses. We took a look at it from a constructability standpoint. We think it works. We did talk about possibly some ground cover, maybe to take the sting out of the aesthetics of it a little bit, and just a few construction details that I think, Rick, hopefully you can add into the final set of plans just to ensure the stability of it. But from a constructability standpoint, it's become something of standard construction, so we have no issues with that. And then the third thing was the leaching fields for the septic systems on the individual house lots. Because the lots have gotten smaller with narrower frontage since the last iteration of the plan. So Rick mentioned he did show a conceptual layout for the leach fields. We went through, just did some very quick preliminary sizing for a 4-bedroom house, just to confirm that what Rick is showing seems to make sense and is feasible. Obviously, it'll have to be approved by the Board of Health once the final septic system designs are finished, but it looks like they can all fit on the lots. So that's really all we had. We know there's going to be a final set of plans submitted that'll get some additional review. The drainage system, the piping system, things like that we'll want to go through. But other than that, I think at this point, we don't see any other issues.
All right. Any concerns with the extension of the sidewalk down to the entrance of unit lot number 22 that Devin had brought up a few moments ago?
Yeah, and I mean, I would almost say at this point, if you're going to do that, you may want to bring it down to the intersection of the condominium road, because it's only going across one more lot at that point. I don't know, Rick, you'd have to look at the feasibility of that. But if you were to bring it down just across lot 22, I think it is, and make a connection there.
Yeah, we can look at that. I mean, we can certainly extend it, and I agree.
But I agree with Devin that certainly bringing it down at least to the throat of the cul-de-sac would be a benefit.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Bill from the board? Okay, great. All right, Amy, do we have any questions from the audience with regard to our new plan?
Not seeing any yet.
Okay. Very good. All right. So I think at this time, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
Oh, no.
And Rick, you're going to look.
Now. 2 hands up now, Chris.
2 hands up.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Karen McCabe
Right.
and Sandy Myatt. I don't know who was first.
No,
Sandy can go.
we'll go with
Okay,
Go with Karen.
I'll go. Hi. So this is Sandy Myatt.
so I like their, all the changes. They're good. I'm just wondering if back to the cul-de-sac area, is it possible to tweak that cul-de-sac circle 15 feet to the west? You have a little more room on lot 20 and 21, and you could get these houses away from that riprap areas on lot 17. I'm wondering why the circle has to be easterly instead of a little more westerly. Is that possible?
Yeah, we could look at that.
Yeah, and so even if you go down to the curve of the road, opposite lot 23, I wonder if you could tweak it west a little bit there. See how lot 14 is kind of squished up against the, I guess that's not riprap, but it's a very steep slope.
Right.
So I don't know if you could tweak that roadway just even, a little bit more westerly on the curve.
Yep, we can take a look at that. Thank you.
All right. So I also had a question. Let's see. So the septic area on lot 18 and 19, so there's one that sort of straddles the lot line. But why is that?
On
Soil
18,
absorption, 18 and 19, there's this area, SAS area, a soil absorption area on the lot line.
on
Is
which
that-
lot?
It's in between 18 and 19 on the northern area.
Oh, yes, that was
Is
left
that
over.
extra?
That I apologize.
Okay, so that's
that-
not going to be there.
No, that won't be there. There's one on 18 in the front, one on 19 on the easterly side of the house.
Okay. I think that lot 9. Do you have a soil absorption area on lot 9? I didn't see one. But I suppose you could put it in the front.
Yep. Yes, that's where it would go.
Okay, so those are my, and if you could, I like the sidewalk. I know you're going to extend it down. If you go in front of 21 and 22, it would just be really nice to go in front of 23 and 24 so that those condos in the back, 15, 16, 17, 18, they walk up there, from the bus stop. Otherwise, they got to go all the way around the loop. Well, like they could cross the street, I guess. Yeah. Cross the street and then come back.
Yep, exactly. There'd be a crosswalk at that location.
Okay, so is that a ramp in front of lot 15 that would be colored in dark, that ramp? I see it's drawn, but it's not colored in.
Yep,
Is that so they could cross?
that's correct.
Okay. And then further down in front of lot 9, that's also a ramp in front of lot 9?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are my comments on those. Good job.
Thank you.
Karen, you.
So can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so first, thank you very much for moving the bus stop. I do think that's a much improved from the original plan, so thank you very much. I do have a question about lot 32, I think it is. So lot 32 and then where the septic system is, it looks like the septic system is across the easement, right?
Yes.
So you can have a septic system across an easement where trucks can be driving and stuff? Well, need to have a, yeah.
The easement is for the existing electric line to the Buckley and Mann property.
Right. So just 2 years ago, they had audit of it or something, I'm not sure. And they were doing work there. I found it somewhat interesting. And they brought those bucket trucks in and drove them along that line. And there were tracks at that point. So I would think that, you know, probably not anytime soon, but maybe 20 years down the road, they may bring them back. And there's trucks with bucket trucks, you know, they're pretty heavy trucks on an easement. They'll go straight. I don't know a ton about septic systems, but I would think that they need some special type of something so that they don't collapse as they drive over it. Right?
Yep, they would be designed for HS20 loading if there's a potential for traffic.
Right, just like where most of them are on driveways and stuff. That's a similar concern. Which okay, all right.
Can you restate that, Rick?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We lost you when you were commenting on Karen's comment.
Oh, the soil absorption system where there's going to be vehicular traffic would be designed for an HS20 loading. So it could support a vehicle loading over the septic system.
So a vehicle such as a bucket truck, I don't know, like, or my SUV, that's what I don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
A bucket truck.
Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, I don't have that many more questions, but I do want to notate again that we received these documents at 5 p.m. for a 7 p.m. meeting. I still feel it's unacceptable. And I have to admit that other ZBA meetings, we wouldn't have been able to review any of it because it wasn't received the Thursday before. So in fairness to the residents, I don't believe that this can or should happen again. This is the second time in a row this has happened. And last time I was told to be quiet, but enough is enough. Like 5 p.m. before a 7 p.m. meeting is embarrassing for the town to even accept it.
Mr. Weeder, if you don't mind, I did send them out at 5 o'clock tonight with a note saying, I'm very sorry, I didn't send these out earlier. We did receive them yesterday. I had sent the note with that. Generally, I send them out as soon as I get them, but they didn't go to the friends.
Amy, I've frozen up.
Oh, can you hear me?
Amy?
Yep.
Okay, I've frozen up. Is Karen done?
She is, but yeah, she was talking about getting the plans at 5 o'clock. So I wanted to say I did send them out at 5 o'clock tonight to the friends.
Right.
And I explained that I was sorry and I had.
Amy, I don't even think it's your fault, your problem. I mean,
That was.
it should have been on Thursday. I mean, every other development in this town and project needs to be the Thursday before the Wednesday meeting. I don't understand how this one is different, and I'd like to be explained how this is different.
It isn't different, Karen. The other projects also have not provided the details the Thursday before. As a matter of fact, this developer has actually provided us with greater detailed drawings and explanations than any of the last 3 projects we've reviewed. Okay?
But how do we have time to review them so we can ask our questions?
We're here right now.
Right, but
We've seen these drawings now 3 times. So there's some minor changes that are being made. I think the applicant has addressed all the concerns that you brought up at the last meeting and the meeting before. So you've actually had three cracks at the apple here.
no, we haven't seen them at this.
Karen, we're not going to go that route. Okay, we've already gone this route. We all received the plans. Everybody is doing their best. This is a constantly moving project.
Right.
You don't, because you're not involved in it, you don't know the back and forth that go on, the reviews that go on, the changes that go on. It would be wonderful if everything could be done Thursday before a Wednesday meeting. It doesn't flow that way. There's changes made at the last minute that have to be incorporated. And that's just the way it works. And again, if you look back and if you look at 144 Seekonk Street, if you look at 194 Main Street, if you actually look at the enclave prior to that, the details we have received on this application, the review we've done in this application has been far greater and in much more detail than the prior three.
Yep.
And in the same time manner. Okay?
Yeah, I do have one more question about just the lots. I'd want to point out that that lot 32 and the lot 31, I mean, those houses, again, they have very minimal usable land or land that's not, but those houses are very close to each other. I mean, they're very close to each other. And many of the houses, you know, don't have like 31 doesn't have a backyard, it has a side yard with a septic system. But I still think that we could look at it and we could make these houses more look better and not on top of each other if we just removed a few houses and spread a few of them out. And I know I'm not the one buying the house, but my house value, when you can't sell it because it has a 40-foot wall in its backyard, or they have to hold they can wave hi to their neighbors as they're driving up their driveway as they stand in their kitchen, you know. I just think that we haven't really investigated just trying to remove one or two, like 2 or 3 houses, make it a little less dense, and then make make every single house a little bit more advantageous with a little bit more land. Because some of them are really on top of each other, and they're 4-bedroom houses. They're not 2-bedroom duplexes. You know, they're going to have a lot of cars in their driveway, a lot of kids in their house, a lot of people playing outside.
Thank you, Karen. All right, any follow-up from any of the board members? Amy, are you ready? Amy, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't see anybody.
All right, Dan, do you have any comments before we go to the waivers and the conditions?
No, I'm good. I have a few follow-up comments, but I think we can address those as we go through the conditions.
Okay. All right. I think John, I think Dan has asked due to his throat that either you or Rick go through the changes in the waivers. I don't know which one of you are prepared to do that, but can we do that? And again, we'll go through the changes from the last meeting.
We don't have a lot of changes from the last meeting. I think we've gone through the waivers a couple of times, so I'll try to summarize as best as I can. And I think the one item that we didn't add because we weren't doing the sidewalks in the past is on page 3, under Article 7, Section 2, wetlands. We should probably add after it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On the 9th line from the top, after water main, I think we should add sidewalks. Or the sidewalk related to the offsite improvement.
I'm sorry, Dan, are you making these edits as you go along?
Yeah, I'm just going to open my document so I can, at the same time. What page is that on, John?
It's on page 3.
3? Read the waivers.
Sidewalks being constructed in conjunction with the water main as well. That's, and we weren't doing the sidewalk work in the past. I just wanted to add that there. That's all.
Okay.
The next change that edit that I have Page 8 includes the permitted uses, and actually there aren't any changes on that. That's just the 64 units in the breakdown on page 8. So then moving to page 9, section D.
John, can you let Amy catch up with you? Yeah, are you controlling the screen?
Yeah, why don't you, can you switch it to Dan? So,
Dan, do you want to show yours?
Sure.
Yeah, because they're not keeping up.
Okay, hold on. All right, where are we?
Yeah, it's actually page 9 where you are right now. So that's consistent. What we did is we eliminated some of the excess language from the last time we discussed this under the Aquifer and Water Supply Interim Wellhead Protection District. We get rid of the treatment works narrative.
Okay.
And so so that was the only change there. Scrolling down to the dimensional requirements, page 11. The only changes were the minimum lot size to 15,000. The rear setback to 15. And the minimum building setbacks 10 feet. And I believe we had discussed that previously, but
Yeah, I think we did.
and then scrolling down just on pages 12 and 13, we just identified the subsection under what was required, nothing substantive changing there on page 12 and 13. Page 14, signs. We had changed that to provide that it'll be a single sign constructed in the fieldstone wall. So that was just cleaned up. Scrolling down into the subdivision regs. Starting on page 17, we just under 3.4, we just added definitive in front of plan, not a substantive change. Then scrolling down to page 20. There was a slope requirement, minimum slope 3 to 1. And with the changes in the grading and so on, that is being requested to be waived for lots 3 to 18 and the condominium lot.
So, John, does this provision relate to the lots or the roads? Let me see if I have my copy of the.
Rick, do you know the answer to that, or by any chance, or?
I'm looking at it right now, John. I believe it's for the road, but I think we added it just to be sure.
yeah, that's a road requirement.
What section was it for?
4.15 on page 411.
It's a road, yeah.
Yeah, I think this relates to the road construction, not for lot construction. It's in the road construction section. This is all roads.
Correct.
Didn't have a specific heading, so we just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, it's the road.
Well,
It is the road.
Can just say if applicable, and if it's not, then it's not.
well, let me think of a way to word this because I'm not comfortable waiving it if it's not applicable. But let me. I understand your concern. You're not sure whether it means the lots or the roads. Let me just make a note and we'll tweak it.
Again, is requirement a minimum slope of 3 to 1 or maximum slope of 3 to 1?
Yeah.
I think minimum is the right word. Because 3 to 1 is gentle, 2 to 1 is steeper, and 1 to 1 is steep. So I think that's the right adjective.
Section 4 is all designed for roadway construction. If you want to scroll to it, Dan.
If I could, section 4 under 4.11, it actually says the subdivider shall observe all design standards for land subdivision as hereinafter provided. These standards shall be considered minimum standards. Wouldn't the entire lot be considered the subdivision under the subdivision definition?
Yeah, that's the ambiguity.
Yeah, I think we can. Let me work on the language to cover you. I understand what you want covered, but I'll work on that for the next draft. All right, we can move on.
Next is under the page 20, 4.18. It's dealing with walkways on existing roadways. And so we're asking for a waiver of that section, but it ties into the sidewalk requirements that are in the decision under 5E1. Because our offsite sidewalk is, the conditions of that are tied to the decision, the body of the decision.
Right. I don't think we addressed the width of that sidewalk, except I thought that you agreed that you were going to build that Lawrence Street sidewalk in compliance with the subdivision regulations anyway, weren't you?
That's
correct.
That's how it's that's how the decision is crafted at this point under E1.
Okay. So if that's the case, we don't really need the waiver at all, do we?
Well, the regs right now do require granite, so I think you're doing burn, right?
Yeah, I think, if I may, I think the proposal would be to construct a sidewalk from the easterly side of the proposed Road A in the easterly direction along the site frontage, but not constructing a sidewalk westerly along lot 32, which would also be considered frontage of the parcel. And I think a waiver would be necessary so that we are not required to construct that sidewalk westerly.
I see. Okay. Good point.
And, the next one is 5.14. We're still staking to the center line at 50-foot intervals. But there is a waiver request to, in terms of the staking of the right of way after clearing and grubbing. And minimum widths and depths. This way, we just clarified it. We're not looking for any waivers of the depth requirements or the construction quality, only the width requirements of the right of way and streets.
Hey, John, can I just, can we just go back real quick to the staking one? You just want the staking to occur after clearing and grubbing, right? That's the only waiver you're asking for?
That's correct.
All right, I'm just going to say this. Waive to allow staking to occur after clearing. Is that okay, John?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, what was the next one?
Sorry. And the next is minimum widths and depths, as shown on the table in the subdivision regs. So as I was saying, the applicant's not looking for waivers of the depth requirements or the construction quality, only the width requirements of the right-of-way and streets.
Okay, and what is 14? What's 414.6, John? Is that a waiver up here? Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, I get it. So
Yeah,
you just want-
414.6 is the it's the table.
So should we say here, waive for consistency with the board's waiver decision under 414.6?
That's probably okay, yeah.
Is that, John, can you see that?
Yeah.
John, are you good with that language? Should I just type?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
Okay.
Sorry. And I think, yeah, on page 21, it's actually 5332, 5334. I think we had discussed this before, this language. I think this clarifies where this would be waived only where the installation would create a hazard because they're in an intersect of a driveway. In terms of,
We just ask Bill McGrath if he's okay with us. Bill, you still there?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I was just reading it. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think the intent is just if the curb inlet is going to create a hazard, it wouldn't go in, which would be standard engineering practice. So.
okay. Then on page 22, just in terms of retaining walls, because of the changes in design, we've eliminated lots 8 to 12. So if retaining walls are required to the rear of any lot and they exceed 4 feet in height, they'll be designed by the engineer and reviewed by the board's consultant prior to its construction. And the retaining walls are going to be composed of ready rock type that has a molded stone face. Then 5.9 on page 22 is just to clarify where the street trees are going to be planted, and that's outside the right of way. And then we've clarified no waiver from the fees for review of the septic under Title V. That's on page 24. And then page 25 was the waiver of the water service connection fee. But that the funds from that waiver would be deposited with the town in accordance with the decision, which I guess we'll discuss shortly.
Sure.
To fund the paving. And that's it for the waivers.
And with regard to that, so the board members understand it with regard to the fees for the service schedule, that is the 136,800 is for the 48 units, I think, correct? Then the other 16 units will be waived. So they're asking really the 48 units, the money for the 48 units to Lawrence Street. They're asking for the 16 affordable units to be waived. So the board members, as we get close to the conditions, to understand that, if any of you have any questions.
All right, you want to tackle the conditions first?
Yep.
All right. Why don't we start at the top? All right, so the draft I'm working off of is the one that John sent over by email a few hours ago. It's a markup of the draft that I circulated around 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll just go through the redlined edits. If any board member wants to jump in with a question or comment, just interrupt me. But I'm just going to flip through and just focus on the redline edits. So we're in actually the findings section here. There's some spaces to be filled in when we close the hearing. This is the list of the plans. I created a new subsection of plans that are the current conceptual site plan, the one that was revised on August 27th. That is, I think, the operative plan right now. I kind of want to call that out as a separate plan, and just for the board's reference, that's this plan, the one we just looked at with the sidewalks in black. You didn't have to make any changes to the finding about the sidewalk since it's still being built. The big change between the last two decisions, more for the public's edification than anything else, is that instead of the applicant depositing money to the town, for the town to build the sidewalk, the applicant is now agreeing sidewalk construction itself. And so we'll get to those conditions under condition E1. I added some language to section A1, condition A1, just clarifying that the decision that we're going to vote on approves the project as shown on the layout plan and the conceptual site plan. And that again is the last plans that we got. This is the conceptual plan showing 64 lot, 64 units, and the layout plan. And this is this document here, which is the boundaries of the lots. So this decision, this permit, is approving the project as shown on those two plans, but then we're going to require all these other plans to be updated to reflect the changes. So I'm just going to go back to this list. The original plan set has multiple sheets, utility sheets, grading, construction details, but all of these are outdated now and they need to be updated. So the main condition of condition A1 is the developer has to now update all of these plans. It's actually this document here. This is the plan set, which has 26 plan sheets. So this will be updated after the permit's been issued, but before any work's done on the property. Going back to A1, condition A1 again requires the applicant to submit revised plans to the zoning board after the permit's been issued. Those plans will be then peer reviewed by Beta, and the zoning board, if the zoning board finds that the plans conform to every other condition in this decision, the zoning board will endorse those as what we'll now call the approved plans right here. Those approved plans can then be recorded at the registry of deeds, and those will be the record plans going forward. We do that with every comprehensive permit that we issue.
And before you scroll further back, back under BI, there is a area for the party that's going to be soliciting the bids for the scope of work. And thought you might as well fill that in. I'm not sure who that person would be to fill that role.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure why. This was language that we used in another project. And I don't know why we have to identify who's preparing the scope of work. Is that something that's important to you, John, or can we just take this out?
Well, I guess the board is going to solicit the scope. I just don't know for efficiency purposes what you want to do, what the board wants to do.
Well, I'm sure the board will delegate this to someone, and most likely the town planner. So, and we can put the town planner if you'd like. I don't think it really matters. Okay, I'm just going to take it out. I think it's superfluous. For the pre-blast survey, we clarified that there would be a video recording of any foundations within 800 feet of any blasting. We actually made that change at the last meeting. Condition D3 speaks to a concept that there's going to be a project-wide homeowner association. And this is something I want to clarify actually tonight, because this is important and it's relevant to a couple of other conditions. It's my understanding that there's going to be a condominium association for the 32 condo units, and that there will be a homeowner association for the 32 single-family units. But I think we also talked about having a project-wide homeowner association. And I think the reason for that is that it seems to me that the streetlights and the detention basins serve the entire project, not just one of the projects. So is that consistent, John and Tom, with what you were thinking in terms of who's going to be taking over the responsibilities for the detention basin and for the streetlights?
That is correct, Dan.
Okay. So are you okay with this language then, that there'll be a project HOA?
I am, yes. Mhm.
All right, now we get to the sidewalk project on Lawrence Street. This is new language. Now, this is something that myself and the chairman discussed with the applicant a few days ago, or last week, I guess. And this is language which I believe in concept the applicant agrees to. Essentially, what the applicant is going to do here is the applicant's going to design the sidewalk. He's going to prepare a new plan. That plan is going to then be submitted to the zoning board for review and to the DPW for review and approval. The sidewalk plan has to show all the details that would be required by the planning board. Sidewalk has to comply with ADA requirements if applicable. And again, that plan has to be submitted to the zoning board. I think this is actually condition A1, not B1. If for some reason the DPW and the applicant cannot agree on the sidewalk construction plan, I had set this up so that the zoning board would be the final arbiter. John, you would change this language. Did you want to explain this?
Yeah, I mean, just backing up to A, we just were looking for clarifying language that what we're dealing with is the northerly side of Lawrence Street for the sidewalk. Because our intention is purely to limit our work on the northerly side of Lawrence Street. And in terms of the language under B, and again, we just not too long ago had a chance to sort of look at this language, this revised language. What we're trying to do is find a way to come to an agreement and on the sidewalk construction plan, and it has to happen quickly. And also, the idea is that we're working within certain parameters in terms of costs. And this is a very expensive project. And so if there is not the inability to come to an agreement in terms of the sidewalk construction plan and the scope, that this language then would limit the applicants, and because the applicant has to finance this, so the applicant needs to know what his outside costs are going to be. And so you had included a provision with respect to the sidewalk mitigation fee, which is defined below to be no more than $150,000. And so the idea is that if there is an agreement on the plan within 60 days, then there is the opportunity to have a default so that the funds are there to construct the sidewalk, rather than having the Board of Appeals be in the middle of that discussion. Because I'm not sure that they want to be in the middle of that discussion. And the other piece to this is in the second sentence, if the acquisition of easements is deemed necessary, then there's a small window to be able to accomplish that. And because what we're trying to do is time the construction of the water line with the sidewalk. So the town is going to have the ability to secure those easements or propose a different design that doesn't require the easements. with the provision that, again, that the design stays on the northerly side of Lawrence Street. And the idea is that that the applicant's willing to modify the design, and but there has to be and you had included a language of that the design is modified, provided that it doesn't result in any type of material increase in cost or a greater financial burden. And so we try to define that as the monetary amount if there's a redesign. And that if 1 year following the date of the decision, as opposed to the approval of the sidewalk, any necessary easements need to be obtained, then and if that condition fails, that the default again is that that there be a payment of $150,000. Again, we understand, and Tom is certainly willing to cooperate to create a sidewalk design that meets the needs of the town. But also we need to sort of, Tom can't be an open checkbook on this. And so we're trying to sort of limit that exposure to a default, which would be the sidewalk mitigation fee, which is $150,000.
If I could, the intent here actually is I'd like to have the sidewalk plan submitted back with the revised engineering site plans for the project, so it could all be reviewed at the same time. That sidewalk plan can be reviewed by the DPW while Beta reviews the plan for the project development itself. And our intent is to put the sidewalk in, like John said, right after the water main, so we get this work done immediately, and we're off of Lawrence Street, and the town can then do their overlay and correction on Lawrence Street with things. We do not want to delay this. We just want to get it done, and that's why we're trying to put some timeframes here.
Okay. So I think I appreciate the need to put some timeframes in. I think that's reasonable. But I guess starting with your first change, I think if you want to put a time frame in here that works, but I still think that if for some reason you can't reach an agreement with DPW, I don't think it should default to payment of the sewer mitigation fee. I think the zoning board would then have the ability to step in and either approve or deny the sidewalk construction plan. In practice, what's going to happen here is that there's going to be cooperation between all of these sub-agencies, Board of Selectmen and DPW and zoning board. So I think I'd rather keep the language the way it is, put in the 60 days. In fact, if you want to make it 30 or 45, I don't think that's a problem. But I think what your concern is, you submit this to DPW and it just sits on someone's desk and it doesn't get acted on. And I think that's reasonable. But I would recommend that we keep the language that the zoning board would then determine the adequacy of the plan, which honestly, we're only looking at the sidewalk plan for conformity with the town standards. So this shouldn't be that complicated. With respect to the limitation on the work being on the north side of Lawrence Street, I guess my question would be, why is it necessary to limit the work on the north side? If let's say hypothetically, we come up with a plan that crosses Lawrence Street and part of the sidewalk is on the south side. And the town, as this language is drafted, the town is responsible for getting the easements if necessary. And I think it would be if we're on the south side. Why does that matter to you guys?
Because you could be increasing your sidewalk costs due to compliance by another 20, 25%. if you had to upgrade to ADA requirements. Those sidewalks, from what I understand, were built in the 80s, and they're all uneven across the street. And so to make those comply, that could be a considerable expense. And that was never part of the equation on this. The idea was to provide a sidewalk on the northerly side of the roadway as originally contemplated. I mean, if we had an unlimited checkbook, yeah, would. But again, that's an unknown, and in terms of what those costs might be.
All right. And then this change here, if after a year the easements haven't been maintained or a modified design has not been agreed upon, then the default is the sidewalk mitigation fee. I think that should be 1 year after the approval of the plan, because it might, for all we know, it could take you 6 months to prepare the sidewalk construction plan. And so that's outside of our control. So this deadline shouldn't be based upon the date of the decision, where we may not have more than a few months to try to get easements. In the process for getting easements, if it's not a friendly process, it could take a while. But I would recommend that we go back to this language. Obviously, the sooner you submit your sidewalk construction plan, the sooner that 1 year clock starts ticking. So you could do that next month. We're ready for it.
Like I said, our intent is to get the sidewalk construction plan submitted with review of the other engineered documents and civil site plans. So actually, if we wanted to just say that the sidewalk construction plan would be reviewed within the 60 days of submission, like above, and that would be endorsed by the ZBA at the same time as the approval plans with it, then I'm fine with that. And then that ties it all together so that it actually is approved all in one shot, and we're not actually going back and forth. I just think that we need to look at all these plans collectively and have them all approved and endorsed at the same time.
Okay. All right, and then on C, John, do you want to explain your change here?
Yeah, I mean, the applicant is going to diligently pursue all approvals and so on to undertake the sidewalk improvements, but the applicant shouldn't be obligated to, if there's any type of appeal, the applicant shouldn't be obligated to pursue an appeal on this type of offsite improvement. So that's why, if there is such a circumstance or an inability to secure a permit for any reason, or if there is an appeal, that the obligation with respect to the sidewalk is limited to the funds. That way, if for whatever reason, for whatever difficulty arises, we're not expecting it to arise, but it could arise. We don't want to be in a situation where we're stuck for 2 years or 3 years on an appeal with respect to a sidewalk, and in which case the town would be protected because they would have the funds in place as a default to the sidewalk mitigation fee. That's the reason.
So, John, are you talking about an appeal from this comprehensive permit, or are you talking about some other appeal?
It could be either.
Well, if it's an appeal from this comprehensive permit, then I don't think the sidewalk condition isn't adding any more time to your project. If there's an appeal from the comprehensive permit, then you're going to have to deal with that, and either that's going to delay your project or not. Maybe if you start construction at risk. But I don't think the sidewalk condition is actually adding any delay or time to the project. But I don't think it's justified to basically eliminate the condition just because there may be an appeal on the permit. If you were talking about an appeal from a permit for the sidewalk, there aren't going to be any sidewalk permits. So I don't
Well,
think that's an issue.
I don't think we know that yet because we don't have a design.
But we're waiving every possible permit process because we're subsuming that within the 40B permit. So I don't see what possible right anyone would have to appeal the sidewalk. There's no building permit. There's no scenic road bylaw permit. No wetland permit.
If there's any state wetlands jurisdiction.
But there are no. You know where all the wetlands are, right? So there are no wetlands. I just don't. I don't really see why this is needed.
Well, I can understand the appeal to, with respect to the comp permit decision, but if there is, as a result of the design, some other permit that we're not considering, then there should be some ability to not be held up because of that and to have that ability to have a default.
Yeah.
And I
Is it
think
gonna
we're
be
gonna have to look at this a little more, and maybe John, you can have a conversation offline.
Yeah, I mean, conceptually, I don't have a problem with that because I don't think there's ever going to. I don't think there's going to be a permit. And if there was a permit that we didn't think of, I don't see why you wouldn't just come back to the zoning board and ask for a minor modification to include that within the scope of this permit. So I guess conceptually, I'm okay with that if we limit this to a permit exclusively for the sidewalk.
That.
Then D, inspections will be done by DPW. Any dispute shall be settled by mutual agreement between the town engineer and the applicant's engineer.
It's just a mechanism to enable the engineering folks to resolve the issue rather than involve the board. No offense to the board. Trying to make this as streamlined and efficient as possible. I mean, the board has enough on its plate. But...
Yeah, I mean, I think what I had in mind here is that the board is not going to make the decision. The board's going to ask its peer review engineer to review it. And I think it's better for the board to be making a decision because this is, in a way, a political decision. This is a sidewalk. Normally, the planning board would be the ones to inspect a sidewalk, and the planning board would rely on the advice of its consulting engineer. So I think we should stick to that kind of framework that we already have in town for sidewalk construction. And I don't think that's a problem for you guys. I mean, it's again, the inspection is only to make sure the sidewalk is completed in conformity with our standards. So if our consulting engineer says it's not, I mean, that should really control them. All right, so I think we ought to just address E1 first, and I don't know, Chris, if you want to weigh in at this point on these changes or not, or if you want to defer this for another discussion.
I think you're gonna have to, we're gonna have to wordsmith it a little bit more before we have, unless members have any feelings they want to bring up, but I think we gotta clean it up a little more. It's not clean as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think we're in agreement, so I think we have to solve this.
Yeah, unless John, if you can be more flexible on the issues I raised.
I think, I think there's enough information where we're not going to have any new information. So my sense is the board, after this, assuming they feel that they have enough information, might have the ability to close the hearing and then deliberate if they needed to. I mean, we've all worked hard on this project. It's been years, and to the extent that we can try to work this out, even if we took a quick recess, if the board felt comfortable with all the other conditions being resolved, then maybe that's something we can do. But
I don't think we're that far apart on these issues, and I think we can again put in time frames. That seems to be your main concern, is that decisions be made in a timely basis so that it's not holding up your water line construction, which is needed for the project. And I think that's reasonable. So I think that's really the main contention here. I think we're okay with a northerly side. I don't think that's a problem. I just think this should be subsection B. I think the zoning board should make the final decision, and if it doesn't work out, then you pay the fee. But that should be the zoning board. That they should be able to make that decision. And I think Tom just said that he's in agreement that everything's going to be reviewed after submission of these plans, and so again, we're okay with putting a time frame on the review. But in this, I think we can just limit this concern to any permits for the sidewalk itself. And then this, I don't see why this is a big deal to you guys. I think we just have the zoning board be the arbiter, and the zoning board's going to rely on the peer review engineers. So,
well, I think on D we're okay with that.
Okay. I mean, do you guys want to take a break and talk about this?
We're okay with D. On C, if it's limited to the sidewalk, we're fine with that. And then scrolling back up, if we could just come up with some time frames, that's all I'm looking for, is that we can just keep it, when we submit these plans in, they're reviewed in a timely fashion, and it just doesn't hold anything up with that and stuff. That's all. So if we can just put some time frames in here that the plans are reviewed, and we can get them approved and things. That's all we're looking for with this.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike. I think that's a reasonable request of the applicants. If we can button up those time frames, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
All right. I think we can work on the language then. Why don't we move forward? So again, that language replaced all the language we had previously, under which the applicant was going to deposit money instead of building the sidewalk. So that all comes out. Condition E2 is the money that the applicant is going to deposit as a contribution to pay for the expense of repaving Lawrence Street after the sidewalk and the water main extension are installed. So the agreement is that the applicant will pay $136,800, and those funds would be deposited in an account set up under Section 53A. Those funds can then be spent for the filling and repaving of Lawrence Street. And these payments we made in this sequence, so 70,000 halfway through the project, and then the remainder at the 48th occupancy permit. So there was no substantive change to this condition. I just wordsmithed it. And so now we get to the question of the water connection fees. So the 136,800 is actually the amount of water connection fees per unit times 48. So that's where that number comes from. So the idea was that we would grant a waiver for 48 units for the water connection fees. That is an offset. But the applicant is also seeking a waiver for all of the water connection fees, so not just 48 units, but all 64. So that was the question that we left open from the waiver list. And the applicant's argument would be that the additional work that the applicant is doing for the water main extension above and beyond what's really needed is an improvement for the town, in that it's going to provide the ability for other neighbors on Lawrence Street to tie into the water main, and also to allow potentially future extensions in this neighborhood. So what the applicant is going to do is install things like gate valves that will accommodate in stubs to accommodate these future connections. We also asked the applicant to install a 12-inch extension as opposed to an 8-inch extension. That's the diameter of the pipe. Again, to accommodate future growth. So that's an expense. That's an added expense. So the applicant would argue that the added expense that he's agreeing to do is more than covered by the cost of these additional water connection fees. So that would be his nexus argument. Do you want to say anything else on that, John or Tom?
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, do you want to pull the board to see what folks think?
Sure. Does everybody understand what Dan just spoke about with regard to the waiver for the water tie-in? Does anybody have any concern with regard to that?
No, I think it's a reasonable request, Mr. Chairman. The amount of this, in my 16 years on the board, this is probably the highest amount of mitigation we've ever requested. So I think it's a good deal for the town, and to forego some of those fees, I think that makes perfect sense.
Don, any concerns?
No concerns, thank you.
Joe?
No, no concerns.
Kevin?
No concerns.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we'll grant the full waiver of the water connection fees in the waiver table. No. Now, condition E5, as we were talking about the site plan,
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think you're frozen.
Lost. We lost him.
Yeah.
I'm going to text him. Okay.
Yep.
Come back in, Amy.
Oh, here he comes right now.
Sorry about that.
All right.
All right, my internet went out and now I'm back. Let me go back to document. All right, everyone see this language?
Yep.
Okay, so as we were talking about the site plans with the crosswalks, I think what we talked about was that there should be a crosswalk connecting this sidewalk here that's for the condo units with the sidewalk that's on the east side of the main road. And so I think what we need is a sidewalk, a crosswalk here and a crosswalk over here, or here, I'm sorry. Is that right?
I think they're there, they're just not colored, aren't they?
The applicant,
Rick, do you have three? Rick, do you have three crosswalks or two? I think it looks like you have three.
I see 3 spots people would cross.
Yes, there are crosswalks. The northerly crosswalk is at the north intersection of the condominium roadway and roadway A. There's a crosswalk on each side. One is shown but not colored. There's a second crosswalk at the mail/bus stop area. Both of those are colored in. And then there's a third crosswalk just to the north of the southerly intersection of the condominium roadway with Road A in front of lot 26. So there are 3 crosswalks.
Now, if we extend the sidewalk though past lot 22, is that going to create a fourth crosswalk?
There would be another crosswalk necessary from heading off to south of the condominium roadway area, yes.
Right.
Right here, Rick?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I actually think, I think we need to add some language here that 4 crosswalks should be added to the final site plans prior to approval under condition A1 to connect the sidewalk. Oh, let's just say to connect the sidewalks. Does that work?
John, are you okay with that? And Tom? Did we lose Amy? Is Tom and John still in, or?
Let me,
On mute. I'll let him respond to that.
We're fine with that.
Okay.
I added a condition here that the applicant would incorporate Bill McGrath's suggestions in the letter that he sent over yesterday regarding the grading that's behind the single-family homes. Bill made a couple points about ensuring that the slope with the riprap is going to be stable. So I just incorporated that here. With respect to the open space, now this is condition F5, a few just wordsmithing changes. The concept here is that the open space would be restricted, of course, and at first, that the first option would be for the applicant to convey the open space parcel to the town, to the Conservation Commission, if it wants it. If the Conservation Commission doesn't want to own it, then the fee interest in the open space would be retained by the project HOA, which we just discussed as the all-encompassing umbrella homeowner association. But that would be subject to a conservation restriction. That restriction would then be conveyed to the Conservation Commission in a form that's acceptable to us. I'm okay with this language that John added, because the intent is not to force the applicant to go through the approval process with the state, the restriction. That's notoriously difficult and time consuming, and that isn't the intent, nor is it required to be enforceable. And then this language here in the middle of the condition is that the restriction has to be conveyed at least prior to the 60th certificate of occupancy in the project. If for some reason the Conservation Commission declines to accept the restriction, then the restriction would be conveyed to a land trust or a nonprofit that the selectmen designate. There's no concern with this language to me. That's the intent. We have built-in language here to acknowledge that the applicant has the ability to impose a nitrogen loading restriction on the open space for the project to comply with Title V. That's not a problem in terms of the ability for the open space to be restricted. And then John, you added this additional language that, and again, this is just sort of like the catch-all. If for some reason no one wants the restriction, I guess we can't find anybody to hold the restriction, then there's some default language here that the project HOA would just hold the open space subject to the condition in this permit itself that no one can ever do anything in the open space. No clearing or development allowed back there. So I'm okay with this language that John added. I would maybe tweak it a little bit, but substantively it's fine. And then I added one more or two more sentences at the end just this evening, because it occurred to me that whoever holds the restriction, whether it's the town of Norfolk or some nonprofit, they need to be able to get there. So we need access. And we've talked about this in the past, but we really haven't defined what we meant. So I'm proposing that the applicant convey an access easement from the future future public way, which is Road A, and then northerly along the side of the detention basin, and then across the lots 18 through 20 along the edge of the wetlands. So let me pull up that map so you all see what I'm talking about here. So here's the cul-de-sac. This is the detention basin. We're already going to have an access easement right here, and then the access easement for the detention basin is in this location. So what I'm proposing is that there be an additional access easement that extends north to the edge of the wetlands. Then within this 50-foot buffer, it should be running behind the lots so that we can get to this back area. Because the bulk of the open space, 37 acres, is north. So we need some mechanism to be able to get back here. That's what I'm proposing, and I know I just sprung this on Tom and John, and I don't know if you have a concern with that or not, but I don't see any other solution because it's all wetland here.
Could you scroll down, Dan, a little bit?
Scroll down.
Yeah, because I think actually to the west is the town of Franklin's open space that abuts this.
This is the town line.
Yeah, so where your hand is, that's the open space in Franklin. So that's another way to get to back around to the other open space.
Right, but isn't this all wet here?
Yeah, some of it's wet, but then it also abuts the
Yeah, so I mean, this is the entire open space, and I don't know if there's other trails. I don't know what this is, but we had a discussion about making sure there's access back here from the project, and so that this is the only solution that I can think of is creating this access easement basically along the proposed drainage easement, and then just running behind these lots. And there's no intent here to make this a public area. This would only be for access by most likely the conservation agent or somebody that the town hires if they ever need to go back here for any reason.
So, well, the open space to the west is Franklin, which then in turn abuts up back further towards this rail line town of other additional town of Norfolk land to the north.
If I may comment, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, John.
In terms of this new language, I think that Tom has been consistent. If the public was to acquire that land, then the access would be provided. Here in this language, it's much more broad than I think what Dan had just suggested in terms of the access to the public. So if the open space is going to remain as part of the association, then there's no reason to provide, that potential liability to the association if the public isn't going to have any other use of it in terms of a fee interest or a conservation restriction. Unless Tom disagrees, but I think that was, I don't want to speak for Tom, but I think that was his intention here.
I have a concern having an access going through people's backyards. I'd prefer to keep it in a condominium type of setting if possible, and also to limit it to just walking access.
So
yeah, we can build in language that it's not for vehicles. But and John, the intent was that the easement would be going to whoever's holding the fee or the restriction. So, I would assume what's going to happen here is that a restriction is going to be conveyed, if not the fee, to the Conservation Commission. So the commission needs an easement to get to it. And so there isn't anybody else who's going to use this easement. The easement's only for the purpose of the holder, so they can get there. Does that address your concern?
Well, I guess the only concern is that we don't have a traditional conservation restriction here, and so as a result, the parties that have an interest in the restriction aren't going to have the benefit of a limitation on liability. So if it's open to the public and it's not a traditional conservation restriction, then that exposes whoever owns that property to additional liability that isn't otherwise protected.
But I think we agreed that it's not open to the public. Right?
Well, I mean, if it's open to the town, isn't that to the public?
Yeah.
If it's just open to the entity that's holding the conservation restriction, I don't have a problem with that.
If I may intervene here, the easement should specify who it's for and what the intent is. And passable via vehicular or on foot. Otherwise, you'll go into problems later on.
Who's that? All right, so I think we can address this by typing this up. I believe we're in agreement that the intent is that the only people with access to the open space would be the holder of the actual restriction itself, and not the general public. Is the board in agreement with that? I'm pretty sure that's what we talked about in the past. Chris, are you okay with that restriction?
I am.
Well, Dan, just clarify, if you're talking about a conservation restriction?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's gonna, so the CR doesn't need to be signed off by the town?
Right, the Conservation Commission would have to agree to accept it. So if they agree to accept it, then they're accepting it subject to the terms that we've set. And one of those terms is that this is not a recreational area. It's not going to be open to the public to walk and do whatever else. The intent was only to restrict this land from future development and to keep it in its natural state. So I mean, I'm comfortable, adding language just to be clear that any access easement is only for the benefit of the holder of the restriction, not for the general public.
For purposes of sort of enforcing the terms of the restriction and policing it and inspecting it.
So there'll be nobody accessing it then?
Well, the conservation agent could access it to make sure what John just said.
Right, just that, but not residents of that development?
No.
Okay.
Excuse me, when you mentioned the conservation committee accessing this, are you including the open space committee or the green area committee? Is there a committee?
This would just be the Conservation Commission.
All right, so I'm going to just add language here. The purpose of the access easement is for inspection and maintenance of the open space and not.
You agree, Dan? It's just clarified Josephine's question, is just conservation, not open space committee.
I'm sorry, what's that, Rich?
It's limited to the Conservation Commission, not open space committee, if it's.
Well, yeah, that's what the sentence says here. The applicant shall convey to the holder of the fee or restriction encumbering the open space. So it's whoever the holder is has the benefit of the access easement.
Is this access for maintenance? Because last time I checked, the conservation committee is responsible for enforcing and maintaining certain conditions so that we don't subject it to EPA. But I mean, is this for maintenance of the area? Because I think that could be the open space committee.
So the maintenance committee, the maintenance responsibility, the care and custody, it falls on the commission responsibility, not the open space.
I'll confirm these details with Janet DeLonga after this meeting. And Rich. All right, so are we generally good with this language, John? And we can continue to look at it, of course, but you're okay with this concept?
Well, the only comment I have for inspection and maintenance of the open space by the holder, maybe.
By the holder?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, streetlights we already talked about. The detention pond. So we had a condition in here that the detention pond would be maintained by the residents, not by the town. And so I think this should actually say, instead of condo trust, I think it's actually the project HOA would be responsible for maintaining the detention pond. Because I'm correct, that the detention pond serves all of the roads, not just the condo road, right?
That's correct.
This. I think that's it. Yep. John, do you have any other comments on the conditions?
I don't.
Dan, do you want to take just a short recess, because we still have some not open items, but we still got some language in the conditions. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess, see if we can clarify those a little better? Or what's your thought on that?
On condition E1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. If you want to do that, that's fine.
All right. So why don't we take a, John, keep your phone available. And why don't we take a 5-minute recess here, Amy, and then we'll come back to see if we can clean up this language on E1 a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Amy, do you have everybody?
Chris, I'm not sure how we can do this. Can I put people back in the waiting room while you guys? That would.
Okay. Can you put everybody back in the waiting room except for John, Tom,
Yeah.
and myself?
Except for the players. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know when you've done that.
I don't know.
I'm not sure you could do it. Andrew's the host right now.
Yep, I can do these one by one.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me make my screen a little bigger here. All right. Like Tim.
Are you just trying to talk without everybody else hearing it? The moment,
I think so.
it might be easier just to mute everybody and just have the other ones not muted.
But if they're muted, they can still hear. We just can't hear them.
No, if everybody else is muted but us. I mean, if everybody else is muted but them.
Just had a question on things. Is this any, maybe Dan or John might be able to answer this. Is this any violation of an open meeting law or anything?
Thanks, Tom. That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah. I don't.
So
Yeah, I wouldn't.
now here's something. They are in the waiting room, but we're streaming on live TV, right?
Yes.
Richard, are you here?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry. I want to apologize. I couldn't make it to that meeting that night. I got stuck with AAA down in Swansea.
Oh, sure. No worries. Yeah.
So, yeah, so this is, I don't know how we take a break unless Andrew shuts off.
I don't think you can. I think
I personally don't feel comfortable
no.
having a discussion like this, so the applicant's not going to say a thing.
Okay.
So can we
If
put everybody back on?
Yep, they're back in.
Okay.
Just one more to, I think, let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just about everybody's back in. Everybody's back.
They're back, but they're not on.
Well, I don't know. They're in as far as I can see. Yeah, everybody's there.
They're there, but they don't have video and audio on, right? So
Well, they can mute or unmute themselves, I believe. Dan's on mute. Is Dan here?
they're muted, no video.
I don't know if somebody wants to text him or I don't know if he can hear us.
Okay. I don't think it's a good idea. Let's put a text in.
Chris too. Actually, Chris isn't here right now either.
Amy,
Yes?
were you talking to me or?
No.
Okay. All right. Dan's working on some of the language and Tom and John are speaking right now, so we're trying
Okay.
a little bit of cleanup here.
Okay.
Amy, are you there? Amy?
Yes.
Okay, is everybody back? Can you get everybody back? And I think Dan's back.
Okay. Is everyone back?
I guess she's got to get everybody back first, right?
I don't see Tom.
Are the members back? I see Mike.
I can't see, it's tough to see while, Dan is sharing, so gotta give me just a minute here.
Okay.
Let's see. So Dan's here. Chris is here, Tim's here. Devin, Dawn, Joe.
Mike's not he's muted.
Yeah,
But he's here.
so everybody's here.
Are the abutters here as well, or?
Many are muted. Yes, yeah, they're here. A lot of people are muted, and I don't know why. You know what? I'm gonna unmute everybody right now.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I think she quit that.
Okay, everybody's unmuted now. So anybody who wants to be muted should mute themselves.
So anyways, they're a couple streets down from me.
Okay, well, maybe I should mute again.
Yeah, so this house I'm at,
Oh,
Esther,
who's speaking?
that's his mom used to rent.
Oh dear.
And she said, so I used to come down and babysit. So I would come down with the
Amy, if you unmute everybody, they'll light up we'll see who was.
No, I think she saw it pop up or something. Yeah.
Elizabeth Wakely.
She goes, even like.
Why don't you mute her? Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth Wakely.
Years ago on the roof check.
Thank you.
I have no idea.
No.
Okay. All right. I think you muted her, Amy.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Dan, have you you had a chance to look at that and try to do some wordsmith?
Right. So I cleaned up this language, and I think it's in a form that works for the applicant. But why don't we find out? So I'm assuming everyone can see this. Okay. Do I need to blow it up a little bit, or can everyone read this language?
Yes.
Okay. So for section A, I struck some of the language that John had added, but clarified that we're talking about the sidewalk that would be built on the northerly side of Lawrence Street. So, and I agreed to strike out this necessary crosswalk language, so there would not be any crosswalks. I think that covers that concern. Since we're defining the sidewalk as being on the northerly side of Lawrence Street, I don't think we need to say it again here, so I took that change out. On subsection B, I left in the framework here to have a decision made within 60 days of the applicant's submission of the construction plan. But I restored the language that we had that if there is a disagreement between DPW and the applicant, that the zoning board would have the final say on whether the plan complies with the local rules. The rest of the section deals with what if we need easements. Town of Norfolk has the option of obtaining those easements. Or proposing a different design, provided that the work remains on the north side of Lawrence Street. That's John's change, which is fine if we're agreeing to limit it to the north side. John here just wanted to clarify what was meant by a greater financial burden, defining it as anything more than $10,000. That's consistent with what I intended there, so I think that is fine. On this next sentence, I restored our language that if a year passes from the date of the construction of the sidewalk plan, and we haven't resolved this question of easements, then that's the date on which we release the applicant from the obligation to build a sidewalk, and the applicant deposits the money into the sidewalk fund. And I think this is consistent with what Tom was saying. I think he intends on filing the sidewalk plan at the same time he files the revised site plans. And again, we have 60 days up here to sign off of them. So I think that is consistent with what Tom was concerned about in terms of keeping this on a short leash. But at the same time, it gives the town a reasonable amount of time to get the easements that may be necessary. Subsection D. So this was the issue with the permits. So I reworded this so that what we're talking about here are state permits. So if there's a state permit that the applicant thinks he needs to build a sidewalk, and that state permit he can't get because he got denied, or there's an appeal of a state permit, then the applicant is released from this obligation to build the sidewalk and then can instead pay the sidewalk mitigation fee. I made it state permits because if there's any local permit that's needed for the sidewalk, that can be included within the comprehensive permit. And I think the remedy there is for the applicant to come back to us and ask for that to be included. And again, I think we've talked about every single permit. I don't think there's any permit that's going to be needed. The road opening permit, we've said that that's within the scope of this comprehensive permit. So what does the applicant think about these changes?
John, are you taking a look at that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that in concept, and the only question is whether there would be a blanket waiver from local requirements, just to make sure that we didn't need to come back, provided that the DPW is satisfied with the design.
So I don't think there's a problem with the zoning board saying that any local permit necessary for the construction of the off-site sidewalk deemed to be granted as being within the scope of this comprehensive permit. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Rich, do you have any, from your planning board experience, any comment on that?
I don't really see, you're talking about the permitting right here, right? So I don't see, there is no wetland resource areas, and
Right.
so it's just, through DPW. So
Yeah, I think that's the concern. I think the applicant is concerned that some wetland pops up somewhere and then they have to get an order of conditions. So I think that's, this covers that, I believe. So I think why don't I add another sentence?
So really, Jane, just to clarify, if there was a wetland, if there was, which I don't, there isn't, but anyway, it really just alleviates us relative to the local bylaw, but you can't, if it needs to require, under state, you got to do it.
They have to anyway. I mean, it's state law. We can't trump it.
Right. So not applicable, but whatever.
right?
That work, John?
You guys okay with section B?
Just reading through it, Dan, just give me just a quick second.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman and Dan, I just, I should have mentioned this at the very beginning when you came back on. I just want to make sure for the purposes of the audience that there is no discussion from our parties with the board, or just in terms of making sure that we're complying with the open meeting law. We didn't say anything, so we weren't listening,
We
and we weren't party to it.
We will confirm you didn't talk to us. Most of us were trying to figure out how to get in and out of Zoom. Mute mode.
I'm fine with the language here, Dan, reading through this with things.
Okay. And then subsection A. We already talked about these issues, and nothing major, no major changes here.
Mitch, are you still with us? Or Dan, or Tom? There was a question from a fellow, John Godden, who he asked, is there a plan to have a crosswalk from sidewalk on the east side of Brett's Farm Road to the sidewalk on the north side of Lawrence Street? He asked, was there going to be a crosswalk? My understanding is there probably would not be a sidewalk based on our previous discussion with those sidewalks not meeting ADA compliant across the street currently.
We wouldn't be doing any work on the southerly side if that's what you're asking, but on the northerly side, we'd be all ADA compliant on the Lawrence Street new project intersection.
Yeah, the question was just about a crosswalk, not sidewalk. There's an existing sidewalk now, so I just wanted to make sure that there would be a crosswalk going across Lawrence Street to the new sidewalk that goes all the way down to the pond.
I'm not sure I follow you. Say that again. From Brett's Farm coming.
So on Brett's Farm Road, there's a sidewalk that goes to the end of Brett's Farm Road into Lawrence Street. It stops there.
Mm-hmm.
The new sidewalk that's proposed is going to be just on the north side of Lawrence. So is there going to be a crosswalk across the road, across Lawrence Street from that existing sidewalk to the new sidewalk?
We'll have an entrance where the sidewalk is on that, but when the town overlays the road, if they're going to put a crosswalk, that would be up to them.
Okay. Just wasn't shown on the map, so I just wasn't sure.
That answers the question, John?
Thank you.
Okay. John, are you comfortable with that section now?
E1B. You talking?
Yes.
And A.
I think I'm okay with it, Tom.
I don't read as fast as you. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Dan.
Okay, so I think we're good. Obviously, there's some cleanup that needs to be done. I don't think the board needs to receive any more evidence in this hearing. The cleanup of this draft decision can be done over the next week or so, and then we can convene again if you'd like for a final meeting vote on the final draft.
All right. Do any board members have any concerns with the language in the comprehensive permit or the waivers as we've reviewed now? Mike,
I'm all set. Thank you.
Kevin,
My only question is, do we cover the sidewalk just like extending at the cul-de-sac on the final set of plans that we discussed earlier today?
the fact that we're going to have the sidewalk go past unit lot number 22 and then a crosswalk there.
Yes.
I think that's I think where Dan has in the conditions with up to four crosswalks. So that would include that.
Okay, so it's just part of that.
I can clarify that we're talking about extending that sidewalk too. I don't think I did that yet, so I'll put that in the condition.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Joe, any concern?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're good. Don.
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Amy, is there any questions with regard to the conditions and waivers from the public?
Not seeing any yet. No hands up that I can see. Oh,
Okay.
there's one now. Yep, Karen McCabe.
Okay. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I just had a question about the path to the trails. I didn't understand it completely. So will there be, because in the previous meetings, there was agreed upon that if the town accepted the land, that would be a access path to access. There's hiking paths back there. So are we saying it, even if the town accepted the land, there would be no access from Norfolk to the open land that's being, provided to the town? Could you just clarify that, please?
Dan, do you want to just review the different scenarios for Karen again?
For the offer to restrict the open space from the applicant was on the condition that it would not be open for general public's use to use for recreation through the development. So if there's another way to get to the open space, such as from Mill Pond or from Franklin, then that's fine. But the applicant was just simply saying that did not want the general public to go through the private areas of development to get to the open space. If that's your question, that's this language here on condition F5, that the access easement that we were talking about to get to the open space from the project was going to be limited to just the holder of the restriction, and most likely it'll be the Conservation Commission. So they would have the ability to get back there from the project for maintenance and inspections.
Yeah, I think that's a huge miss on the town. I mean, there's nice hiking trails back there. And, at the beginning of this, the tight space, when it was actually even more space, the developer was saying it's almost like the open land type of development. So I do think that's definitely something that should be considered. I think it's a huge miss that this town could have great access to land. And again, maybe he could remove. Again, I think the houses are very tight. If you just take a few of the houses out, there would even be probably just a special section that could even be allotted just for the public, including those people who have just rickrack in their backyard. They could have access to nice hiking paths, or we actually use it in the winter for snowshoeing. So I do think that it's definitely a huge miss on the town's part, that they should definitely consider maybe looking at that again. And again, the density, it could be helped and access would be allowed to it if the density of the development was just taken down by a few houses.
Just to clarify, the residents of the project would have access to that open space.
Not if they don't live directly abutting it, right? If you live on that, right?
No, because all the residents are going to be part of a homeowner association, and the homeowner association would presumably hold the fee to the open space, right? So if the restriction is conveyed to the town, the HOA is still going to own it, so they can reserve rights to access it, and they can work amongst themselves to provide access. There's direct access from the condominium parcel, so all of those folks will have access to that land. We're only talking about
The residents, the people who now will have 800 more cars driving by their house. They won't have access anymore, right?
I don't think they have access today. It's private property.
There is access, from I don't know where all the lot lands are, but there's access from the public area of Norfolk right on the town line. But I don't know, maybe you go through an edge of it. I'm not sure. I don't see the markings out there, but right now, without markings, it seems like you are going through Norfolk public land and to access these trails. And you can actually see the path if you just drive down the road that people walk from right by the town line, but still on the Norfolk side.
If that's the case, which I don't think it is, but if that is the case, then the public would still be able to get back there. So I don't know all the public
Because
routes.
now there'll be a retaining wall or something in the way. I mean, like I said, you may have to go through 10 feet of, the private land, but there's no sign up that says it's private land. So, I mean, it is taking something away from the people who currently access it.
But they're accessing it via private land right now,
Well,
Karen.
we don't know, but I don't know that. Well,
If they're accessing it through Franklin or they're accessing it through Norfolk town land, then they'll continue to be able to do that. They just won't be able. It's similar to somebody walking in your backyard. You wouldn't allow it, so the residents of this condominium project certainly don't want to have people just wandering up the street into their backyards to go
Right.
back.
But if we change the density, we could have a little extra parcel of land just a few feet, and then you could have access to it.
I mean, there is a town parcel that abuts Lawrence Street, and there might be just a small section of the condo piece that if there was an easement to get to the Franklin open space. So Franklin abuts this new development.
Like I said, when you walk it, you don't know where the town lines, you don't know where the town lines are. You don't know where the private property lines are, but right now there's access, and I do think we should take a look at it and see if there's something just to keep, keep the residents whole,
If I could comment, there is no public access over the property to get out there at all right now. If anybody is going over there, they are trespassing. So there's no loss of any rights.
Okay. Maybe we could get one benefit from 800 cars driving by our house. I'm not sure.
Well, that's the mitigation. That's what the mitigation of the water lines for, Karen, and the sidewalk.
All right. The next was, I just wanted to bring attention to that section E.1, that it was changed. The information was changed, and you guys pointed it out. It changed from 30,000 square foot lots to 15,000 square foot lots. That's a huge change in these lot sizes. And I think it goes back to the density. I think we're accepting a very high density for very large houses. I really think that something should be looked at for these densities of these lots. I mean, they're very high.
Okay. Anything else, Karen?
Yeah, and the last thing is, we've always been told that we need to keep the bridge project separate from this project. And the bridge project is mentioned in item 21. And I've been scolded more times than not that it's a totally separate project. They were not dependent on each other and should be not should not be reliant on each other. So item 21 states the bridge project, and I don't think it should be stated.
Dan, do you want to comment on that? I think you have it for history, but Dan, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, let me just pull up the language. Aaron, where are you? What are you referring to? Is there a paragraph or a section?
It's in the findings.
Yeah, let me go look for it. Hold on. Yeah, section 21, the beginning. The ZBA finds the applicant has made financial contributions in engineering to connection with town successful Mass Works grant application for Lawrence Street infrastructure improvement.
Right.
It's a separate project, right? It was in,
You're saying that the Mass Works bridge project is separate from the 40B project?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, exactly. It just happens to be in the same area.
Right, but the only reason the applicant helped pay for that application, the engineering, was to accommodate his project.
Yeah, it was to,
So it was a contribution.
Project.
It was a contribution to the improvements, the public infrastructure improvements that would benefit, obviously, his own project, but also other people in the town of Norfolk. And so that's what this finding is only simply saying, that it's acknowledging that there was a financial contribution under the heading of off-site infrastructure improvements. When developers or applicants, this is not uncommon in a lot of private developments. The developer will either offer or is required to provide off-site infrastructure improvements. A big example of that, of course, is Gillette Stadium. When Kraft expanded the stadium, he had to improve Route 1. It's a much smaller scale, but the concept's the same, and it's appropriate to acknowledge that there was a contribution for some off-site improvements, and that's all this funding does.
Okay, that's fine. We're just always told that it was separate, but I get it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Any follow-up from the board at all? All right, at this time, I would ask then.
Dave Diamond has a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Dave.
David, you're muted.
Here I am, double muted. So I just want to let you know that I am familiar with that 5 acres of the town property, and the applicant is correct. To get to the Franklin, you would have to trespass on what's currently the property. Town of Franklin has done quite a bit recently with trails and walking paths, and I know it's conservation land over there, but they've done a phenomenal job with Indian Rock recently in kind of a similar situation. What it would require would be, if it's a potential solution, is to create some sort of a corridor from 15 Camden down to the town land. There is a stub there of a trail, not all the way in there, but I'm not positive the grade, but I believe the grade would be, fairly easy to do, and that would allow walking from, our neighborhood in Brett's Farm or wherever, through the existing trails there, and then the conservation land. There is a trail that goes right down to the cul-de-sac at Meadowlark, and that connects in on an existing trail. You go over a little stream, but on an existing trail to the land that was donated to the town of Norfolk, and it's really quite nice there. If you scroll down on that map just a little bit that you have up, drag it the other way. I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a piece, so I think you may be able to follow. If you look at Meadowlark and you just went straight ahead on Meadowlark Lane, and you can see that there is a piece of property there, which is part of the open space that would be donated to the town, and it would go into that other property, which actually covers part of Mill River, which now belongs to the town. And there are some very nice trails there. And the rest of the land there, I'm not positive about, but I do remember from the golf course, I believe it was abandoned railroad land. And, you know, it was looked into at the golf course property about how to obtain that or access it. And I believe what was out there is that, you know, the abutters typically can access it. They can't claim it or own it. So let me just summarize. It would take, I think, for the applicant to provide the town or donate the town, convey to the town or whatever, a maybe 10-foot swath of land to put a trail back there to provide access. It wouldn't, and that would be access to the Acorn 2 conservation land. And if, you know, I know the meeting's kind of wrapped for tonight or anything, but I'd be happy to just, you know, provide more details on it if anyone wants to walk it, to envision it. It wouldn't cut across, and there is one stream, very small stream, but it's dry most of the time in the Franklin side, but it isn't wetland over there.
Dave, where are you showing this access from? I guess.
Okay, if you can just scroll up. Rich, are you familiar with it? I think we may have shown you a map to it. If you move back down towards Brett Farm Road, I'm sorry for not being able to call us up. So if you look at 65 and 67, lot 65, 67, where the entrance to this new development is, to the left of that is town land.
The red circle.
And there's, that's, so Rich, you got the circle right where we're talking about. What would it require is that there be, I don't know how you know, how much land you need to do, but just a walkway through there to get up and around 15, and then you're in the conservation land. I would, you know, I think this would be helpful to have, you know, and there's, like I said, the Project Indian Rock. If I had access to chat box, I could send you a link to it. We could look at it after that. They recently did this. And they did find some funding, put some little footpaths over. I believe that the town of Franklin would work with you on that. The only other alternative to get to that land back there that was donated to the town is to just, people do park at the end of Meadowlark, or there's a baseball field down there and people go on it. But it would be a great project for the open space green. It would give us more of a green corridor. It really would be a green corridor. There you go. That's easier to see. So. I don't know if the applicant, you know, could just comment on this. Don't want to put them on the spot or anything, but if you can see that, the intent on that, it would be a wonderful thing for us to have because we have connectivity to the other town land.
Tom, can you do you want to comment on that, Tom?
Tom, you're muted.
I've made the comment a few times, if the town wants to take the property, and that way we don't have any liability, and that would include the 30 some odd acres that's to the rear of that property, because sooner or later people will be walking through on that property and just do not want the liability, you know, of creating any access down there for future homeowners and in the houses or the condominiums. I don't have any problem with you know, trying to create an access like that and actually deeding that property to the town.
Yeah.
But I do not want to have easements or create another access where somebody can do that.
That will be included, right, Tom?
I would consider, I'd have to look at the engineering, but I'd consider doing like a 10-foot pedestrian only deeded piece that would go there if the town took the other property behind it. So that way there, it limits any liability for anything in the future with, you know, if anybody should fall or anything else or have anything happen there. And I will point out that, I think there's like another 20 acres out there that abuts this piece that the town of Norfolk owns also.
Yeah,
This
that's
one-
that's the land I'm talking about. Is
Yeah.
that I believe that Mr. LaRusso did deed that over to the town at some point. Amy, you may know about that, or we went out and looked at it. But that I hike in that property, and it's waterfront as you get down towards the tip of it. If you pull the, so maybe people can see it. If you pull it down more towards the railroad tracks, pull it down that way, pull it over there and up straight in, zoom in. Okay, so that right there between the railroad tracks follows the Mill River. That's the property that the town has, and it's pretty much landlocked. But there is a fantastic trail loop in through there that goes all the way down to the river bridge, and then you can see more of a green, where the trees are and everything. There's a pathway in there, which is also belongs to the town too. I know if you pull it over to the left more towards Franklin, you can see another section in there. So there's this little other lot.
I think we get the point. I think we get the point, Dave.
Yeah. Okay.
I
If
guess
anyone wants to pick up on the tour, I'll have my own Zoom after, but thank
There
you.
you go.
Thanks for listening on this. I think it would be a great opportunity for us.
Dan, does our condition allow for the town? I think our condition does allow for the town, if they so desire, to take over this, correct?
Take over the open space.
Take
But-
over the open space.
But what,
But
what we're talking here, I think, is to create a strip right
So
here.
how do we incorporate that? Can we incorporate that into that condition? That if the town does take it, then Tom will provide a 10-foot walking path easement? Can we do that?
Well, we can create a new condition that the applicant would convey, not just an easement, but I think he wants to convey the fee to a strip in this location to provide access to the Franklin Conservation Area, which then gets to, actually, can someone clarify who owns this? Is this part of the project site, or is this other private property?
That's it's the condominium.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so what this strip would do is just provide access to this land in Franklin. And then presumably, if there's a trail here, then this could provide access to the open space that the applicant is conveying, which is in this location. Is that correct, Tom?
But that open space would have to be taken, the fee of that would have to be owned by the town of Norfolk if we're gonna do that. I wouldn't want people going over the condominium property that didn't own the property.
No,
But
that's what we're trying to advocate for.
I'm sorry? Is it?
I said, that's what we're trying to advocate for, that to be the town win. Tom.
I agree with Dave with this. I think it would make a beautiful green belt with everything. I just do not want to, saddle future homeowners with any liability out there.
Understood. Yep. So if we could get a little strip access, that would help advocacy.
Right. So am I hearing, Tom, that you would not object to a condition that would require you to convey a 10-foot wide strip of land that would connect the town-owned property in this location with the Acorn Woods Conservation Area?
Provided that the town take title to the other property in the rear, because I know people will end up there.
Makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. You have that, Dan?
Yeah, I got it. I'll work on a condition.
Okay. John, you're okay with that? John, are you there?
You say
Sorry, I
John?
muted myself. Yes. Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right. Okay. And Dave, does that satisfy what you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if this thing proceeds, we could get organized. It's more of an open space thing. There was an open space plan. So absolutely, it would be a wonderful benefit, and I think so many people would appreciate having that.
Good. Okay, good. All right.
Chris, I just wanted to say just thank you to Dave for bringing that up. I think that was a great idea.
Actually, you got to give Karen credit. If you only give Dave credit, you're going to be in trouble, Devin. You know.
Karen, open the door. I raised my hand.
the two of them. How about that?
I wouldn't want to get Karen upset. So.
How about the guy donating the land?
I think that goes without saying at this point.
All right. And,
same here, Chris. I mean, this. I'm glad we continue to discuss this because that's important, having access to the land if the town decides to take over that property.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
All right. At this time, I would like to see if I could get a motion to close the public hearing for the Norfolk Board of Appeals for the Abbeville Development LLC and Abbeville Residential LLC.
So moved. Joe Sebastiano.
We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? It'll be a roll call vote. Mike Kaliza.
Yes to grant?
No, this is closing the public hearing, Mike. I love you, Mike. I love you. Closing the public.
Mike's ready to pull the trigger.
Yes.
Can we
he's
close
always
it
ready.
now? Why do we have to wait? Aye.
Okay. Devin Howe.
Aye.
Don Hanson.
Aye.
Joe Sebastiano.
Aye.
Christopher Weider. Aye. Okay. And then I'm going to ask for a second motion, and it's more of a again a ceremonial as opposed to, we will have another hearing after Dan cleans up the conditions, but I'd like to have a motion to approve the conditions and waivers as amended this evening, September 2nd, for the Abbeville Development LLC and Abbeville Residential LLC for a comprehensive permit.
All right.
I so move.
Oh, go ahead. Who said that?
Don Hanson.
Okay. I'll second. Joe Sebastiano.
Any further discussion?
Just a question on this. Does this close the door on any potential edits to the conditions?
The only edit that will be, yes, it will, other than what Dan is working on with regard to the walking path, which is included in this, which will be included in this.
So can we just, I just wanted to be clear that it would be to approve the conditions with an amendment to just the walking trail.
Actually, it'll be a condition. It'll be conditioned to approve the amendments discussed this evening. All the amendments, not all the amendments.
All right. So let's clarify that motion, Don. You do so move.
I so move. Clarified motion.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Again, a roll call vote. Mike Kaliza.
Aye.
Don Hanson.
Aye.
Devin Howe.
Aye.
Joe Sebastiano.
Aye.
Christopher Weider. Aye. All right. So Dan, you now have to clean up the conditions. Obviously, we I think there's a couple of things within the waivers that we just got to clean up a little bit. And then I'd like to have a motion to schedule a hearing on September 16th at 7:05 p.m. for the Abbeville deliberations for the residential development and the Abbeville Development LLC.
At what time? At what time?
7:05 p.m.
What time?
7:05 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Chris, do you mean a meeting for that as
Say
opposed
again?
to a hearing? I said, wouldn't that just be a meeting at that point?
It is a meeting. I didn't say a hearing. Yeah, the public hearings is closed, but it will be just a meeting.
Yep.
So moved. So
Second.
moved.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will, we'll see you on the 16th, John and Tom. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple of minutes. We're going to do, let's do the July minutes for the board. And then, Amy, I didn't get a chance to review the August minutes. So let's just look at the July minutes and see if we can get everybody out of here this evening. Okay?
Yep.
Has everybody had a chance to review the July 22nd meeting minutes?
I have.
Yeah.
The only thing I saw, Amy, was on page 2, where it says Chris Henry, at the bottom of that paragraph, you said Mr. Weeder said the sidewalk will be approximately 1,200 linear feet. I think I said 2,200 linear feet. But you can check, but it was
Okay,
2,200, which is what I think I said. Okay.
you're breaking up. What does it say and what do you?
It says 1,200 linear feet that, and this is
Okay.
the paragraph where it starts with Chris Henry.
Yep,
And I said 2,200 linear feet.
should be 2,200. Okay.
Okay.
Nice
Yep.
catch, Chris.
Okay. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the July 22nd, 2020 meeting minutes as amended?
All right, so moved.
I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, if everybody could take a look at the July 29th, I think they are, meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
I have.
The only thing I saw there, Amy, is the word workable.
Yeah,
in
same
the
thing.
fourth paragraph under public hearing.
Yeah, just the one typo is all I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, could I have a motion then to approve the meeting minutes for July 29th, 2020 as amended?
So moved. Joe Sebastiano.
You have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Amy, we're going to wait on the August one. I haven't had a chance to review that one yet, if that's all right with you.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, and Chris, there were a few things I was trying to look deeper into on that one. It's good. We should take the extra time to look at that one.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any further items to address the board with? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the zoning board of appeals meeting for September 2nd at 9:55 p.m.?
Go for it, Don.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm looking at the August 5th minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we didn't
Good
vote.
evening.
We vote. I thought we voted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
night.
I thought Devin was sleeping.
I'm not sleeping.